This podcast is brought to you with limited interruption by Rudy Luther Toyota. Whether looking for an exciting brand new Toyota, a certified pre-owned vehicle, or getting quality routine maintenance and service for your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is the place to go. Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley. Subscribe to the podcast Beyond Politics. They host some of the biggest names and smartest minds. Beyond Politics is from a former Democratic congressman who helped ignite Barack Obama's campaign and a former campaign manager and political columnist. They go beyond the usual chatter on politics, news, science, and books. It's politics and everything beyond. On Beyond Politics, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Broadcasting live on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. In the evenings, usually on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, and in the overnights, 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle. It is the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday, 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. The Democratic National Convention is going on in Chicago right now. And, of course, this was going to happen. Cliff Schecter is kind enough to join us. Cliff's Edge is the YouTube page. There's a subscriber button there. Go join his Patreon. I have. It's what all the cool kids do. You get great political content there via YouTube, and he's kind enough to join us today to talk about the DNC and Trump's imploding campaign. Hi, Cliff.
Well, hello, Matthew. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you? I'm feeling good, especially after yesterday. Although, let's start with the one negative from yesterday. How do you bump James Taylor? How is that even possible? Yeah,
that was kind of rough. I was thinking to myself, my God, I wonder if that's ever happened, and if it has, when the last time that happened. Or like, hey, man, sorry, we don't need you anymore. They should have, just to make him feel better, I should be like, yeah, we also bumped De Niro and LeBron, so you're all good. I've been to a few of the conventions. My guess is you have, and it doesn't really matter if you've been to the national, state conventions, other kinds of conventions. Have you ever been to a convention that runs on time? Because I don't think I have.
No.
It just, so the conspiracy theorists, like that little troll out there, I don't know what happened to him, Nate Silver, the little troll under the bridge at this point. They didn't want Biden to speak in prime time. Biden gave a pretty amazing speech last night.
Yeah.
My guess is that's what he would have been like most of this campaign had he stayed in, and he would have beaten Donald Trump. It doesn't change the fact that I still think the changing of generation overall was a good thing. Having more diversity, a lot more, is a good thing. There are a lot of positives to this, so I'm not sitting here. I'm just making the point that maybe somebody shouldn't have had him go out in the debate stage that night. Let's just put it that way. But, I mean, he would have been fighting, the attacks and have to worry about something like that happening the whole time. So, in a way, he was free last night. I mean, he's been free lately, and he's been showing it with all the things that he says. I mean, it must feel great. You're just sort of like, hey, the leash is off. I got nothing to worry about. Let's get ripping.
Well, and
so, I mean, but
you and I both know as well. There's this immense pressure to get up and coming Democrats on the stage. That's why they had a lot of people. The warm up acts are there, and it just is nothing against it. It's all there, but trim a minute or two here, and then all of a sudden we have You Got a Friend on the stage. I'm cool with that. I think we can just wrap it up. Come on, move off the stage. He's going to play handyman, then we're done. All right, we're all done. I
also felt like, I mean, again, these things do always run long, but we're also theoretically, we're supposed to be species defined by trial and error and learn. This seems to be one of those things, like where you put your car keys that, at least in our house, nobody can ever remember, that you just don't seem to ever learn, no matter how much trial and error there is. And very easily, they wanted to get all those folks in. Well, then, why didn't they see about starting the television coverage at 5:30? I get it. You want to catch the East Coast folks after they're off from work, but maybe start it at 5:30 instead of 6. I don't know. There's an idea. Otherwise, as you said, think ways around it and things you can do. Maybe combine a few things. Have somebody talking while James Taylor's playing in the background. I don't know, but it does feel kind of weird to bump James Taylor. I mean, it's not, it's a big deal. It's not up there with if let's say the Republicans had to bump Hulk Hogan, or Kimberly Guilfoyle's third face. That would have been tough on everybody if some of that couldn't have been seen, or at least let's say they said, look, we have a limit. There can only be 6 convicts on the stage at the same time. So we're gonna have to limit it in what those would have been really tough things for them to live by too. So we all have our crosses to bear.
My guess is that the RNC, they're going stretch to Hulk Hogan. It's like, rip off another shirt. We don't care. Just keep it going. We don't have anything else
you
to
have
talk
3
about.
more under there, or is it just all steroids? Which is it?
After the first night, what was your favorite speech last night, man?
It is tough overall. I'm really trying to think about that because there were some. Okay, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to say I'm kind of the younger folk because I love, and not even younger, but like let's just say the newer folks who they were showing off. I think Jasmine Crockett gave a fantastic speech.
Yes.
Jamie Raskin, I'd say a close second. And again, it's funny when you say, I don't think he's young. I think he's like 60 or something. I don't know. But he hasn't been around as long. And again, I really do think there's a huge divide between the boomer generation. This is not an attack. It's just everything changes, and why I wanted this to happen in Congress, and it has with Hakeem Jeffries. I wanted it on a presidential level to a certain degree because I know this. I can say this as somebody who's in the middle of Generation X, a 52-year-old. I was young enough when Reagan was in office that it didn't have an impact on me in the way of like, oh my God, he's so popular. He's so charismatic. Conservative policies are so popular. There's so much backlash against liberalism. I came up in the 90s with Clinton, seeing us win and seeing our policies begin to be popular again. Yes, we were more to the center, but we were moving sort of to the left. And I think the boomers a lot of them can never get that out of their head. And I think it has hampered them, why they've taken so much crap from lying, cheating, traitorous Republicans is because that's just the way it was, right? The Republicans ruled the roost in the 80s, and even for much of the 90s, even as Clinton was clawing it back, and then they got Bush in office, and they started their streak of, hey, we don't have to win the popular vote anymore. We'll still elect our guys, and just the fact that at this point, everything you and I believe in, for the most part, is shared by more than 70% of the American population. They are completely relying on a ridiculous and just as extreme as possible minoritarian, like, hey, we get 2 senators from states that have 4 cows and, 2 sheep. We have like 8 states like that, and the Electoral College and gerrymandering, and in every way possible, they've rigged the whole thing. So they really represent somewhere around 35 to 40% at best of the population. And in the end, they're treated like a majority. And too many Democrats who are older didn't break away from that. And the cool thing is you've seen Biden getting tougher. I think, the younger ones like Jasmine Crockett and Jamie Raskin and Bashir was up on stage, another one like him who's great, gave the courage to these other folks. To have Bashir from Kentucky talking about abortion as an issue of freedom, not being scared on the issue, not hiding. When Kentucky had its when it had its referendum, it may have been closer than it was here in Ohio, but the good guys still won. Just a reminder, we are on the right side of all of these things, even in the most conservative states. Even if you go to Idaho or Kentucky on abortion rights, on universal background checks, on climate, on these things like on marriage equality, virtually every one of these issues, we are still in a majority. And these are in the most red states. They cheat, they lie, they smear their opponents. The mainstream media sucks and won't do its job, and they get away with it. That's Absolutely. What happens.
Mallory McMorrow from Michigan, she was quite good.
She's terrific too.
She is fantastic.
That's why it's so hard because I can sit here and make the individual jokes about every Republican who spoke. Again, it's not hard to go to sort of a carnival of freaks and pick out one by one, and or a Hitchcock movie, and look at that. And but the thing is that last night it was so, again, with the exception of yes, it ran late. Otherwise, it was so well put together. And What I didn't get to, and all of my, everything I said here is, I loved Biden's speech, but as much as I loved Biden's speech and thought he was terrific, I loved Hillary's even more. I thought she was absolutely incredible. Maybe the best speech she ever gave. You can tell how passionate she is about ensuring a woman is elected president. And that's what I love most of all. is she's got nothing to be ashamed of. I know, Secretary of State, U.S. Senator. She's done some things, you could say, but it won't be her, and yet. She's willing to be that, to go back to the Bible. She's willing to be that Mike Johnson or Moses figure, if you will. You were supposed to laugh at that. I was Mike Johnson, okay, sorry. But the Moses figure who doesn't get to enter the promised land, but takes the next one there, right? And so Hillary, in a way, she paid the price for many years of sexism and all the crap Donald Trump got away with and whatever, so that Kamala can now run in a more informed race and beat the crap out of this guy.
Well,
and you could tell she's passionate about that happening.
And how about her? I mean, she usually has been above kind of the lock him up chant, but realizing, you know what, I'm kind of in the swan song time of my career now. I'm just going to let it go. And the smile, the kind of restrained smile she had on her face as the crowd did that was chef's kiss, man. That was beautiful.
I mean, to quote. Maybe I should quote the father and not quote Tom Cruise from Risky Business, because that's the one that's allowed on here. Sometimes in life, son, you just have to say, what the heck, and make your move. Cruise said a little bit of a different word than heck. But, point being, you're right. I think they were sitting there, and it's just sort of a matter of why should we, Biden, too. I mean, getting so much tougher, getting so much more personal, going after, some of it is because he's such a crude, cruel, evil, easy cartoon like devil himself in the way he talks about people. But some of it also, this Republican Party and how evil, because everybody wants to act like he's an exception and that Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and Mike Lee and these people aren't just as bad, And so the fact of the matter is that I think the combination of how bad they've gotten and they've seen the younger kind of generations from X on down through Z, willing to go after Republicans' character because they have none. Because again, MAGA is a bunch of creepy weirdos. The reason why that's stuck is because it's who they are.
Oh, yeah.
I dare you, find me a Republican elected official who hasn't either grifted money from somewhere, get paid by a law school. We're talking about Mike Johnson just now that you never actually worked for, some Christian law school, or Jim Jordan, you ignored people being molested in showers, or you actually are a convict like Donald Trump, or you go out and shoot your dog Cricket, or we can go on and on. The people who haven't committed crimes are the people who are freaky, weird, just strange. They're the people that have, as someone who grew up in a city with public transportation, if they get on the bus or the train and sit next to you, you get up and you move. These are the types of people that make up their movement. And so say that because this is who they are. It's like they're basket of deplorables. Hillary couldn't have gotten it more correct than that. They are literally a collection of rejects. They are just, they're the, if you saw the movie Twins, when Danny DeVito was like the, whatever they call the leftover garbage after Arnold Schwarzenegger, that's what they are. They're the leftover garbage when the rest of society walks away.
Thank you for reminding me of Cricket, the goat, and the gravel pit. I had forgotten about that. It's been a busy few months, Matt. It has been a busy few months. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about how the Trump campaign is imploding in on itself, and it's delightful to see. Cliff Schecter, kind enough to join us. Cliff's Edge on YouTube. Go and join that. It's the Matt McNeil Show on a Tuesday. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday. Good to have you with us. Cliff Schecter, kind enough to join us to talk about the DNC as well as also the Republicans, and I want to get to that point. So Kamala Harris comes on stage after Joe Biden speaks, does that moment where she says, I love you, which I think that was every one of us at that point. And the Republicans, for some reason, decided that was what they were going to try to tear down and insult. The Republicans are having a very hard time counterpointing hope and joy. They just do not, after 20 years of this insane anger, which this is their only mode, they just do not know how to do anything to combat this. And it's one of the reasons why Harris Walls, I think, is starting to run away with this at this point.
So to address a few points there. One, you're exactly right, obviously. I think it's due to a couple of factors. It's due to, as you said, what I was pointing out before about Reagan. I mean, I think the reason why he intimidated Democrats so much is because, again, I would argue with most of his policies, and frankly, most strongly on economics, it's where we diverted from being the country we've been for 50 years, and started having these vast disparity in wealth. And I won't go into all that. I think a lot of Reagan's policies, quite frankly, sucked. But he was this sort of happy, smiling, face of conservatism. So was Jack Kemp, who served in, his administration. They had people like that who were charismatic and happy and smart. Think of someone like Tom Cotton sitting on TV, who honestly I think looks like a serial killer when he's sitting there answering questions on television. Like, I'm actually scared. I wouldn't want my children near him. And he's maybe one of the few, although he lied about his service as a Ranger, so he of course is weird too. But he's one of the few that probably hasn't actually committed a crime, at least that I'm aware of. He just lies about his military service. But I mean, the fact that they've gotten to this point, so part of it's that, but part of it is that conservatism has just been so getting further and further debased, and their last chance was when Donald Trump stepped in the breach that had been created by Mitch McConnell's refusing to appoint Supreme Court justices and empowering, con men like Newt Gingrich in their party and that kind of thing. People that did not care about policy, that only cared for power, were completely agnostic when it came to policy, except for if it could hurt people that were different than them in the other party, they were with it. Otherwise, it was all about power. And you need to snuff that out immediately. And that's why when I see that in the Democratic Party, and I won't get into all of that here, but when I see figures like that, I attack them. I go after them because we don't want that. I don't care what your policies are. We don't want that. And so it devolved, right? The poster of like humans evolving and standing further up. The Republican Party is crawling further down. It's like a backwards poster. And what you get is this angry, snarling conservatism that everyone is so exhausted by. And Donald Trump is obviously the largest embodiment of it of anybody. I mean, all he does is hurl personal insults. But of course, again, the ones I named before, Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're just evil, insecure, angry, just, people they just, throw out conspiracies and attack people and attack the way all sorts of Americans live, attack our own country and call our country horrible all the time. I mean, they're awful. And so how do you, when that's your face that you're putting out there, how can you counter, the fact that Kamala and Tim Walz are such charismatic, happy figures, and it just worked out perfectly that they are even in different ways, right? Like, she's got the laugh and the dance, which of course they try to go after her for, and that just gets them further in a hole. And here he is, like the funniest sort of positive stereotype, of Fargo that any of us could ever try to come up with, from the camo hat to some of the, to him sitting there talking about how he doesn't like his tacos spicy. I mean, he's hilarious, and they hate it that they don't know how to go after this stuff. So they make things. I mean, do you see now that they failed on going after his military service, which is disgusting. Now they're trying the Chinese spy route. Okay. This group of people where, I'm sorry, Mike Pompeo, I'll say just quickly, I know, Mike Pompeo had an investment in a Chinese company, never told us. Donald Trump had money in a Chinese bank account, made all of his products in China. What's her face? Ivanka got all of the trademarks from China. Yep. Mitch McConnell's wife, her dad literally was a roommate of one of the high-ranking members eventually of the Chinese Communist Party. And weirdly, they were able to do all sorts of trading with us and get all sorts of breaks on tariffs. And they got PNTR covered in his University of Louisville program. Guess which country they send the kids to spend the summer in? China. I mean, it's not going to work. It reminds me of their desperation in '92 with Bill Clinton, where it was like, he was studying at Oxford. He went on a trip to the Soviet Union. He must be a Soviet spy. And you're just like, okay. Your guy literally out loud says he writes love letters to Kim Jong-un, okay? A Smurf with like a flat top haircut who kills lots of people, by the way.
Yes.
Vladimir Putin, a murderer. Orban, a murderer. Erdogan, a murderer. That really seems to be, and of course, who could forget the late, great Hannibal Lecter? I mean, that seems to be the only requirement that Trump likes you. So now he loves all these foreign dictators, but you're going to try to turn. So that's what they're trying with Walz. I don't even know what their new thing is with Kamala. I guess they've given up on you don't even know what you are. You don't know. It's like, really? James Donald Hamill? I'm sorry, James David Hamill? I'm James David Donald Vance? J.D. Vance? Whatever your name is this week, you schmuck? Like, I mean, it's like you. We found 4 pictures of you in drag already. And, of course, I have no problem with that. But his party, and he sure seemed to. You're telling us we don't know who we are? Kamala Harris doesn't know who she is? Like, the whole embodiment of your party is that you're all psychologically screwed, and none of you are comfortable in your own skin and know who you are, and you project all of it onto us. Yeah. That's literally what we're going through. It's like if we could all just get you therapists, maybe we could solve the problems of this country, because we could get you guys all the Republican Party to help. Clearly, its elected figures need.
Well, or J.D. Vance, a large sectional. He'll be fine for hours.
I think he likes the divan better without the arms. I'm not sure, but he sure does put the love in love seat. I'll tell you that.
That is not going away, my friend.
No, he's going to live that. He's going to have to live with that. I'll just say quickly, they are going to keep getting desperate like this, and they're going to keep failing. So good luck, guys.
Yeah,
it'll be fun, anyhow.
Well, you're going after a Midwestern governor who produced pork, corn, and soybeans, and you're wondering why he did business with China. If you guys can, good luck with all that.
And let me say this, because I know you have to kick me off, but they have ads up here in Ohio. So it is true that the Trump campaign is scared enough about the state where they picked their VP from that they won by 7.5 points last time. So you can imagine what the polls these polls that always undercount us, that never count Gen Z, imagine what the real Wisconsin and Michigan polls look like right now if they're fighting for Ohio.
Well, in Wisconsin, real quick, just those amendments that were going to basically limit the governor's ability to spend money, they failed once again. Their polling said it was going to be close.
Massively.
It was
abortions on the ballot in Arizona and Florida. Yep. Like Florida, the chairman of the Florida Republican Party was losing his mind on Twitter the other night. Clearly he's scared because they're putting resources in there. I think Texas could be next. So, yeah,
and Nebraska.
Your tax aren't working.
Watch Nebraska. Nebraska, Wall seems to be resonating there.
We're going to win the Omaha. I think we're going to win that one electoral vote. But I would say watch the Senate race. There's an independent running there who has said he will caucus with neither party, so they can't make him a Democrat. Watch him knock off what's-her-face.
Cliff's Edge is
I know, you got to shut me up.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I wish I could let you go. Cliff's Edge is the YouTube page. He's got a Patreon there. Sign up, join. I have, you need to, too. It's information that will make you smarter. And subscribe to the YouTube page. Cliff, as always, my friend, thank you very much. Take care.
Was that stolen valor? Yeah. I don't know. Take it easy, my friend.
We'll be right back. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Broadcasting overnights in Seattle on 1150 AM KKNW, usually in Chicago this week, of course, with the DNC. They got me on hold, but it's at WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk. And in the afternoons, live in Minneapolis, St. Paul on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday, 952-946-6205. Patrick, how are we today, my friend?
Doing pretty well. How are you today? Always a great time when we get Cliff on.
Always is. Oh, gosh, he's so... The best part about doing a Cliff interview, and this is just for all radio broadcasters out there, you got to love the guest when you ask him a question, 5 minutes later you're asking the next one. He's brilliant that way. I love Cliff. And if you're not paying attention to Cliff's Edge on YouTube, you need to be. He's very good there. I had to do something today. My daughter is going back to college later this week, and she is doing what I don't know if you know. When I was in college, you went and stayed in the dorms generally till your junior year, and then you moved out into an apartment or something like that. But now it's basically you do 1 year in the dorms, and then your sophomore year, pretty much you're in an apartment something. And I had to do this with my oldest child, my son, and I've now had to do it with my oldest daughter. Is I have to take them through a grocery store and teach them how to, we all remember this, how to eat as cheap as you possibly can. Because, especially if you've had the luxury of going to mom and dad's house and little things like, I'm going to get some raspberries. Well, not anymore. Not unless they're really on special. And having to go through it and say, apples are a good value, bananas are a great value. You can get all these things dirt cheap. Pasta, you'll live off pasta. Dear gosh, I would go get like the industrial size cans of sauce, which delicious. Oh, that was just like a school lunchroom. And I'd pour a bunch of garlic powder, salt, and pepper into it. and then I just make up as much noodles as I can, pour it on there, and I would eat that for a week. We all remember that, right? It is a stark awakening when you start going through it and explaining, okay, this is where you need to kind of watch where you're getting your money. But I like that food. Well, yeah, not anymore. Yeah, when you come home and visit mom and dad, sure, I'll pick it up for you. But until then, you're not going to be doing that. So that was my day, part of my day. And, so I hope you had a good one out there. Obviously, I do want to remind you the DNC coverage coming up again tonight, starting at 7 o'clock. We'll be carrying that live. Barack Obama today. A lot of Republicans actually are going to be speaking at the event. As a matter of fact, I have where is that list of Republicans who are going to be coming on out tonight? I know Kitzinger is one of them. This is kind of the plug for tonight is this. Pardon me, I'm having to scroll through my briefs here. Stephanie Grisham, ex-Trump aide. She's lined up a series of pro-Harris Republicans to speak. Adam Kinzinger, the ex-GOP congressman from Illinois and frequent Trump critic, confirmed on X that it will use the speech on Thursday to argue that true conservatism is replaced with a cult. Anna Navarro, the Republican host of The View, will host the convention's second night. So tonight, John Giles, the GOP mayor of Mesa, Arizona, will call on Republican voters to get behind Harris. I plan on doing everything I can to elect the vice president, including speaking at the Democratic National Convention to make the case directly to my fellow Republicans. On Monday, the convention played a video of Rich Logus, the former Trump activist, pro-Trump activist, endorsing Harris after he finally stepped outside the MAGA echo chamber, and featured other Trump voters on video claiming they will vote for Harris this November. Barack Obama was days shy of his 43rd birthday and months from being elected to the U.S. Senate when he stepped into the Boston stage at the 2004 Democratic National Convention. A state lawmaker from Illinois, he had an unusual profile to be headline speaker at a presidential convention, but the self-declared skinny kid with a funny name captivated Democrats that night, going beyond the requisite pitch for nominee John Kerry, instead to introduce the nation to its politics of hope and vision of one United States of America, not defined or defeated by its differences. Speaking in his political hometown of Chicago, the nation's first black president will honor President Joe Biden's legacy after his exit from the campaign, and that was a good speech by Biden last night. While making the case for another historic figure, Vice President Kamala Harris, it is poised to be a significant moment as she takes on former President Trump in the matchup. Obama is still a North Star of the party, said Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, who credits the 44th president with helping her become the state's first black woman lieutenant governor. So that's the big story tonight. My guess is, will we see Oprah? Usually, she is a big fan of the Obamas. I wonder, and I know she's in Chicago. She was actually here in Minneapolis last weekend for the Ellen DeGeneres concert. She's doing her final tour, and apparently they filmed the shows in Minneapolis, and apparently Oprah Winfrey was here, and then I think she just moved camp to Chicago. Of course, she's been long associated with Chicago. So it's kind of one of those things where I wonder if we'll if she's going to be speaking tonight. I haven't seen the full list, but can we get James Taylor back on there? I love James, sweet baby James. Come on, man. We've got to Mexico. Mexico is one of my all-time favorite songs. Period. How do you... I think someone needs to... I get it. You want to get as many of the up-and-coming stars on the stage, but come on. I think, yeah. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. I want to take some time, though, to talk a little bit about something that Cliff had referred to. And it's something that we carried on in regards to the fact that Trump is having such a hard time combating the hope and joy. And it was interesting because, once again, a few weeks back, J.D. Vance is asked, so what makes you happy? It's like, I get happy sometimes, but I'm angry right now. And if you look at Trump's rhetoric, as a matter of fact, this caused me to step back and say, okay, I want to identify what really is going on here. How is this so hard for them? And it's quite literally the Chicken Little syndrome is going on. I have I saw this funny tweet that was put out there, giving M. Rotzi on Twitter credit. This was a RNC research post that was put out there, and it is an Iowa voter who says, it explains, and this is the stirring story of why they're going to vote for Trump. Iowa voter: I see Kamala and I see Walz as being so far left that it concerns me. I'm comfortable with Trump. We had 4 years of Trump. We know what Trump is. I'm not voting for him to be my Valentine. Ringing endorsement there, Iowa woman. I'm comfortable. Fine. He's fine. I'm not asking him to go on a date with my daughter. I'm okay with him. That is not the stirring endorsement. And once again, the reason why this came to my attention is there's a Republican here in the state of Minnesota, one of those, Representative Mary Franson, who, basically retweeted this saying, "Isn't this great? No, this is like the most tepid endorsement I've ever seen. Fine, I guess, sure, I guess I'll vote for him. Whatever." That's the tone, and you guys are acting like this Iowa voter, that's it. That's game, set, match. It's over. Republicans are so down are down so bad they experience "he'll do, I guess" as absolutely exhilarating. M. Rotzi, nicely done. No, that is it is. I mean, why is this where they're at? And it's been the response of Trump that ever since this has happened, he keeps trying to triple down, quadruple down, quintuple down on the sky is falling fear-mongering. It's going to be the worst economy ever. No, Joe Biden has actually, the economy, it's been mixed signals, that's undeniable, but inflation is coming down. The hiring has been spectacular. So unemployment's way down. You've got the stock market has gone crazy. There's a lot of positive. You guys were so eager a week ago when the stock market fell 1,000 points, but you haven't said a damn thing now that the stock market's back up at 1,400 points from when that point was. And it's what's hilarious is when the stock market collapses 1,000 points, the first thing is Joe Biden's stock market. And now all of a sudden it's Joe Biden has nothing to do with the stock market, because this is all you've got. You can only scare people. That is why we're seeing the return of the racist memes of all the black people are going to be in your neighborhood if you vote for Kamala Harris. Immigration was down dramatically. The arrest by border patrols was down dramatically the last few months. One of the things that the Republicans don't want you to hear. The economy is doing well. Inflation's coming down. Immigration is being curbed. Things are getting better. And that is what your entire argument is. And you can't stand it that it's getting better. So they're just coming on out, and you are not only going to lose your house and your car, that all your money's gone, and then you're going to have to go work for a minority. I mean, that is their tone. And frankly, someone reminded me, Trump did do a kind of a soft run for president in 2012. He did kind of a soft run. And then he ran in 2015, 2016, 2020. And now here we are again. It's just he keeps making the same. If you voted for Joe Biden in 2020, you vote for Joe Biden, the economy is going to be the worst economy ever. It's not the worst economy ever. It's better than his economy was. If you vote for Joe Biden, undocumented workers are going to take all the jobs. That was his argument today, is that all the jobs that Joe Biden created were all taken by undocumented workers. Which, no, that's a matter of fact. Let me go through. Former President Trump claimed that not only did Joe Biden take credit for everything his administration did, but nearly all the jobs Biden administration created were taken by illegal aliens, end quote. Monday was the first day of the Democratic Convention, which was headlined by Biden's speech passing the torch to Kamala Harris. The morning after, Trump was incensed and took to Truth Social. Most new jobs under Biden went to illegal immigrants. Additionally, he got what is known as COVID bounce back jobs, standard to all countries after the pandemic. He did it terribly on jobs and everything else, Trump posted earlier Tuesday morning. A few hours later, he doubled down. An angry and ranting speech full of lies. Biden took credit for everything done during the Trump administration, even continuing to say that he was better than inflation than the jobs. He never mentioned the Afghanistan disaster and all the wars. That was thanks to you, you idiot, because you went and negotiated with the Taliban and left the Afghanistan government out of the loop and basically torpedoed that country, you fool. The jobs Biden-Harris created were almost 100% from illegal aliens pouring into our country, which are destroying the lives of black and Hispanic population. In his post, Trump included an irrelevant clip from Biden's speech where the president, who has stumbled over the phrase, women are not without electoral and political power. In terms of jobs, Biden said in July in his administration, 15.7 million jobs have been created, though over the Trump administration, the total number of jobs went down by 2,000,000.7. So, yeah, no, Trump didn't do anything good. When comparing the first 30 months of each president's term, Biden came out ahead. The number of jobs under Biden's first 30 months increased by 13.2, compared to only a small increase of 5.2 under Trump, according to PolitiFact. Even when comparing the total number of non-farm jobs, the types of jobs used to sort of index the increase under Biden, not just that, but the Brookings Institute called out the myth that undocumented workers are stealing jobs. These are all just made-up things. And you see, this is why the Republican voter is at the point of, fine, he'll do, is because it's the same thing. He has to scare his voters into voting for him. And the reality is we've already proven that his predictions don't even come close to becoming true. That Donald Trump is really just he was a horrible person, he's a horrible president, and the only way he can get you to vote for him is to scare you into voting for him, which means hope and joy, which is resonating. By the way, I mentioned Nebraska. Walls goes out to Nebraska. Nebraska, too, flips to Democrat by like 7 points. Happiness and joy are the effective counterpunch to Trump. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
It feels good to see the world getting loose. Feels good to see the world getting loose. I don't know about you, Sack Noel.
It is the Matt McNeil Show, and I will say this, that hope and joy is really, it is stark after 12 years of doom and gloom, doom and gloom. To watch people resonate so much, and it's something that's happening even in red areas. Like I said, that Nebraska thing was kind of interesting. Walls goes down there. Now, of course, he's going to resonate. He was born in Nebraska. So, he goes down there and immediately goes to that one district, which is Omaha. It's Nebraska 2. And they were basically losing by a point to Trump in that district. Now it's like an 8-point Biden-Harris lead in that district. As a matter of fact, J.D. Vance is going over there to talk to people about why you should vote for him. I thought this was Davenport. No, never mind. But, I would not be surprised. There's a lot of people in Nebraska that are upset with pipeline policy, eminent domain policy, and ag policy that occurred under the Trump administration. They are not happy with this. And I would not be surprised if another one of those districts in Nebraska got close. I would not be surprised by that at all. North Carolina, it's once again, you got the crazy town talking about, hate everybody. And here comes hope and joy, and they're like, I think I remember how to smile. Watching Republicans try to play, I'm a happy-go-lucky person, too, is a hoot. Now, we should make sure we mention, I don't think anyone has been fooled by this. I don't think anyone's been fooled by this. RFK Jr. is once again making headlines. His running mate, and it took me a second too, Nicole Shanahan. She has once again admitted the truth. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s running mate seemingly gave up the game by admitting they would consider dropping out of the race and backing Donald Trump. The independent candidate is running low on cash and having trouble getting on the ballot in many states, and his running mate, Nicole Shanahan, claimed that they were debating whether to remain in the race or pull the plug and throw their support behind Donald Trump. There's two options that are looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's presidency because we pardon me a second. Let me once again scroll through my briefs here. We take the risk of a Kamala Harris, Tim Walz's presidency because we want to draw more votes from Trump, somehow draw more votes from Trump. Shanahan told the Impact Theory podcast, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump and explain to our base while we're making the decision. So basically, she's saying the one thing they don't want to do is hurt Trump. A fundraiser for Kennedy who is shocked by Shanahan's comments, saying he was calling off an event he planned to host next month in Utah, hearing the remarks. That just absolutely killed fundraising. Jeff Hayes, who raised money for Kennedy, told ABC News. Kennedy's staff confirmed that he'd met with Trump last month in Milwaukee, but denied that he planned to drop out, and he reportedly spoke to the GOP nominee about possible cabinet position and reached out to Harris to discuss the same topic, but was rebuffed. I will say this. He says he reached out to the Harris campaign. I don't think he reached out to the Harris campaign. There have been multiple people who have all of a sudden said, the party's left me, and they've switched parties to the other side. Predominantly, you see this a lot with Democrats that become Republicans. And I would make an argument that RFK Jr. falls into that category. I mean, if you used to listen to him on Ring of Fire when he was on that, he wasn't exactly Johnny Republican on that show years ago. And it's one thing if you say, I disagree with vaccination policies, but you still have, education policy, transportation policy, health and human service policy, military policy, education policy, environmental policy. You still have all these other things that are out there which you don't think that you would change. Norm Coleman, the former mayor of St. Paul, who became a Republican and became a senator before Al Franken beat him. Norm Coleman, and the only reason Norm Coleman won, by the way, was the tragic loss of Paul Wellstone. Norm Coleman one day said, I've changed, the party's left me. And I said, wait a second here. So nothing is the same? You don't feel the same way about education policy and this? And you know what? That's a ruse. They're not really politicians. They don't really have a belief base. For anyone to all of a sudden instantaneously change all their positions across the board on everything just tells you they were never for anything in the first place. They just basically, it's an easier path for me to go to the other side, and guess what? I bet I could win. That seems to be RFK Jr. Now, once again, there does seem to be some questions, brainworm aside, if he's mentally okay. I mean, his family is not exactly putting him on the Christmas card this year. And this whole thing about you at one point being a liberal, but now clearly in the camp of Trump, only you thought you were going to be the guy that spoiled it for Joe Biden, and now you realize, first of all, you were stupid. The anti-vax crowd, that's all Trump. And so you were dumb to think that you were going to do that. I think you just thought maybe your name was going to, there's a Kennedy, that must be the Democrat. I guess that's what you thought was going to happen, but it's blown up in your face. And now you're trying to find some way to where you don't expose what the whole thing was really about. It was never about your politics. It was about basically helping out Donald Trump. And I don't know what the heck happened to you, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but you are just a punk now. You're just a punk who is, seduced by one issue into jeopardizing the health and safety of this country. And so, when your running mate's out there saying, yeah, we don't want to hurt Donald Trump this election, so we're thinking of basically getting out and endorsing him. Well, that's not independent. That's just basically you're losing what your original goal was, which to be the spoiler, and now you're admitting the truth just because you don't want to be the spoiler. Now, that's on you. But they're horrible people. Let's just be honest with you. Chicago, Seattle. Have a good one. We will talk to you tomorrow. Minneapolis, St. Paul, Hour 2 up next. Hour number 2 of the show here on your Tuesday. Good to have you with us, Matt and Brett. And we got Patrick Coolican coming in here. Patrick is here as well. I do want to mention... are you feeling good? How much of the convention did you see last night?
I caught a good portion of the 9 o'clock hour, and some good speeches there. I liked Raphael Warnock's speech.
Warnock
He was
good.
Tremendous, wasn't he? Yeah.
Well, it's like maybe you should read that Bible. Yeah, he wants to say that as a preacher himself. Every time Trump speaks, he wants to say something about that. Warnock. How about you, Patrick? Anything that stood out?
I watched up until President Biden spoke through, and I thought that was a very good speech he gave. I know it was very late last night, but I think a lot of people were very emotional. It was a very touching farewell address, I think. So I thought it was a good night.
AOC it's easy to see how she has gotten into politics, and her speech was quite good too. And the thing which is going to be, she's going to be like Nancy Pelosi. She always is. The Republicans are going to rail against her. She goes, she's from there. Like this. There's such despise. But that was the most political speech she gave, and it was a good one. And I'm going to be blunt. It was kind of like, oh, maybe you are not just going to be a House rep and work your way up. Maybe there is either a Senate seat or maybe a higher ticket position that is eventually going to happen for AOC. It'll be interesting to see with that. I thought it was a very rousing speech, and it was nice. I loved her tone at the beginning about Joe Biden, and I just sort of said, you know what, we need more of that, And it was Joe Biden's night, and I was kind of wondering, how is she going to put this out there? And she hit it pitch perfect tone. Every single person last night, they were long. How do you cancel James Taylor? Come on, man! It's James Taylor. Fire and rain, man. I just how do you do that? But needless to say, everyone that did speak didn't feel like they went long, and everyone was pitch perfect.
Another one too I just thought of. Not a politician, but Steve Kerr. Did you see his line? Time to put Donald Trump. Night.
The better line. Yeah. The better line is when he starts criticizing Walz's coaching decisions against Mankato East. That was brilliant. That was Now Steve Kerr was really good there. We should mention we're all feeling a little giddy, and we want you to feel giddy with us. Tuesday, September 10th. This is the first presidential debate, right?
Yeah, between Harris and Trump.
What channel is that on? Who's doing it?
Oh, I think it's...
Is it the ABC one?
I think it's the ABC one, yes. I know it's not Fox.
Oh, if it does have it, if Trump doesn't bail on it. Yeah. This is Tuesday, September 10th. We are going to do a debate watching party. We're at Crooners Supper Club, one of our favorite places to go up on Central Avenue, Highway 65, just north of 694 up in the North Metro. We are going to be there. The debate starts at 8. We're doing a live show at 7, right?
That we are, yes.
All right. I'll be giving out. Can I do the menu items? Let me tell you about the menu items here. If you come on up and join us, here's what your options are for a fine meal this evening at Crooner Supper Club. We got the debate watching party. We've got me broadcasting live. I guess many of the other hosts are going to be out as well. I hope they are. It's like a party when we do it like that, man.
Yeah, it's going to be not just you. There will be plenty of other AM 950 personalities that will be joining you on the airwaves for that 7 o'clock hour.
We're all hoping to show up. Are they at the bar? No, it's going to be a blast. We're looking forward to this. Once again, September 10th at Crooners. When can we start putting out? Are the tickets available yet, or is this going to be soon?
They are available now, so get them.
Okay, over on am950radio.com.
Exactly, yep.
am950radio.com. You want to get there early for the live broadcast, the 7 o'clock hour. We're looking forward to that. And then, of course, just watching the debate, watching watching Kamala Harris absolutely spank that orange absolute toad. Here is one of the great things about Trump. She just knows how to goad him. And as desperate as the Republicans are that they want him to stay on message, that she is so good at getting him off message because he just gets so infuriated. I love that. I can't wait for that in real time. I can't wait for that in real time on that debate.
He might be able to contain himself for maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes, but that rage is just going to be boiling up inside of him. And as he said, she knows exactly the buttons to press to get him going.
Oh, she is going to approach this as a prosecutor, prosecuting someone on the stand, and he has no chance.
Yeah, when there's a witness who's a hothead and you just know it's only a matter of time before the witness just loses composure. And I imagine that will be similar to what happens on September 10th.
I'm very happy about this. I do want to make sure I mention this, though, a completely unrelated story, but a follow-up to one we talked about last week. You remember when the Hennepin County Commissioners were trying to raise their salary like $60,000?
Yes.
It's like, what are you doing? They wanted to raise it a 49% increase in their salaries. And everyone's like, no. They apparently have decided to be a little more fiscally conservative, I guess. It's been evident that this is a topic that needed further work. The board chair, Irene Fernando, who introduced the previous proposal of basically cha-ching, they're now voting to increase their salaries by 5% at the beginning of 2025 and another 5% in 2026. This would bring the commissioner pay from $122,000 a year to $134,000 a year annually. The proposal comes from Commissioners Angela Conley and Kevin Anderson. Now, wait a second here. You're making already $122,000. That is not chump change. You're not at 65 a year. You're not at 70. You're not even at 100. You're at 120. You're making good coin. Why are you guys giving yourself a pay raise at all at this point? I mean, I understand that there's the county attorney and the county sheriffs, their salaries have not kept up. But there also sounds like there's funding issues in the county. How is this your big? Are you thinking that you're going to get the everyman worker on board with this? Because I'm sorry, I'm like, okay, 122 is a good rate, and if you don't want it, I can tell you there's a heck of a lot of people in Hennepin County that would gladly take that job and that paycheck.
Yeah, 49% was a little steep. I get the idea of paying our elected officials a good wage so it's not just people who are independently wealthy that get elected to office, but 49% is steep, and I'm pretty sure that
122 is a pretty big paycheck.
Here's what I was going to ask you. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I'm pretty sure that's a lot higher than you make in the state legislature.
Oh, I think it is. And the argument they put forward was, we want to get the top talent from big corporations. Well, no, this is an elected position. You should be getting from the masses. And by the way, maybe this is what we need to say is, hey, everybody, you want to make what will be $134,000 a year? Your job not cutting it? Well, run for Hennepin County Commissioner. Because if you run for one of those commissioner positions, guess what? You're going to get a heck of a payday to go along with it. Maybe that's, I don't know. I think that there's a misguided perspective from the people on the commission that they're really corporate people. Now, if you don't want to be there, by all means, many people have done this. Leave, go to corporate America, bon voyage, all our best. But if you want to be on the Hennepin County Commission, I don't think you want to be a commissioner because of the bling, and it seems like that's what you think this is about, making sure your payday is comparable to the corporate sector executives, not like middle management even, but to executives, senior executives. Well, if you want to do that, maybe you should leave the public sector and go and work for the corporate executives. Go be one of them. Because I think this raise is misguided. Especially when don't sort of tell me you're having a pity party for yourself at $122,000 a year.
So think about that. Might even be more than double than you make in the state legislature, which is just insane to think about. So.
You could make at $122 a year. You are definitely living in one of the upper suburbs at $122. You can afford to live as long as you're not buying the biggest house. You can afford one of the nicer suburbs with $122 a year. What and a car and probably putting money away. I'm sorry. I think there needs to be a mentality change here because until it gets to a point where you're not making twice as much as what's the average worker make in the cities? It's like 74,000.
Yeah,
It's something like that.
Not 122.
It's not 122.
Yeah.
When if you're making
less.
almost twice as much as the average worker in the city, and you think, oh, poor us. Well, I got news for you. You're supposed to represent Hennepin County, not your own bank accounts. They're doing this vote again tonight. I think maybe they're trying to sneak it in with the DNC. I want to make sure I've seen you guys here. Yeah. Patrick Coolican, Minnesota reformer. They've been having some exceptional articles lately here. What are they talking about today?
So I like the column that Patrick wrote today that talked about how this message that Republicans are putting out about how Minnesota and even America at large are failing, we're a failed state, largely flies in the face of what's actually the truth, and the fact that it's not really a message that's going to resonate on the campaign trail and will probably be a reason why Republicans will continue their losing streak of now almost 20 years of not winning a statewide elected office. So we're going to be talking about his column on that. Plus, we'll touch a little bit on the DNC and also a little bit on Governor Walz. Dina Winter did a good write-up on Governor Walz and his policies on police reform over the past few years. A good overview of that. So that's what's on tap, talking with Coolican today.
Coolican from the Minnesota Reformer, which, once again, if you're not reading it, you need to be. The Minnesota Reformer, fantastic. Patrick Coolican talking to Brett right here on AM 950.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Brett Johnson with you here on a Tuesday afternoon. And as usual on Tuesdays, we are joined by the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer. That's Patrick Coolican, as we're going to be talking about some of the stories and columns that they've been working on over at the Reformer, which, by the way, you can find over at minnesotareformer.com, including Patrick's column that talks about how Republicans often try to portray Minnesota and even America at large as a failed state. Plus, we'll be talking about Dina Winter and her write-up that talks about policing and criminal justice reform under the Walz administration here in Minnesota. Plus, we'll be talking about how St. Paul is on the hook for a $1.8 million electric fire truck that was supposed to get federal funding to help pay for it. So, lots to get through today. Patrick, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So, let's start off talking about your column that basically challenges this Republican portrayal of Minnesota as a failed state. Now, you mention in this column some personal experiences that you've had, such as recently, picking up your son from a free community flag football program while biking along a tree-lined route and a trail as evidence of Minnesota's strengths. And these can be easy, to overlook sometimes because they paint a different picture when compared to, other states that don't necessarily have the quality of life that we have in Minnesota. So let's talk about this. Your column opens with a critique of the Republican narrative that America and Minnesota are in the decline. What do you think motivates their rhetoric on this, and why do you think it resonates with their base, but not necessarily the entire state of Minnesota?
Well, with Governor Tim Walz joining the Democratic ticket now, they have to make a change argument, which they've been doing about the country as a whole, and that's why you hear former President Trump talking about how we're a nation in decline and everything is so terrible. And so they have to kind of lump in Minnesota with that, since the governor is now on the ticket. We've even heard Minnesotans make this assertion, including U.S. Representative Tom Emmer, who's the minority whip. He referred to Minnesota as a liberal hellhole shortly after Walz was selected as Vice President Harris's VP pick. In general, I think we understand that when you're in the opposition, you make a change argument. But we usually think of that. The best way to do it is in the fashion of think of the 2008 campaign that Barack Obama ran. It was change, but it was also hope. And this version is much more just negative and kind of angry. And my contention is that it's especially ill-suited for Minnesota because, there's a reason why people live here despite the terrible climate, and that is we've crafted very good quality of life, not for everybody, and that's where there's work to be done, but for some majority of people here in Minnesota, We have plentiful jobs. We live longer. We have good schools and universities. We have wonderful city and state parks. Any weekend, if you have a young family, you can find things to do with your children that are free and wholesome. And so we have all these great qualities, and I just don't think it's a very effective tactic on the part of the Republicans running this year to just talk about how terrible the place is, because it's just not believable to the average Minnesotan. And in fact, it's I think it's probably counterproductive.
I think it also goes to this issue as well that I think applies not just to Minnesotans, but even people from the Midwest at large, and that's that I think they have a lot of pride for where they come from. I'm certainly among them, among people like that. So how important do you think this sense of pride is when it comes to, well, our political climate, when we, again, often hear about Republicans talking about Minnesota being a failed state and it not resonating? I think pride also plays a big part of that, too, especially in a state like Minnesota or even other Midwestern states where pride is a big factor in how people think about their location.
Yeah, I think especially in Minnesota, there's and I've lived a lot of other places in the country, and nobody is as smugly, quietly proud of their home state as Minnesotans, and for good reason, because it took a lot of hard work in a very unforgiving climate to create a place that is a very good place to live, and Minnesotans spend a lot of time volunteering, and they're civically engaged. And so to turn around and then completely trash the place, you're not really just trashing the place or Tim Walz, you're really trashing Minnesota and Minnesotans. And I just have a feeling they're not going to stand for it.
I think, too, what's interesting I found, obviously, with the change at the top of the Democratic ticket, there's been much more of a perception that Democrats are much more positive on their campaign and how the country is kind of playing out at large. And I think that kind of goes to this whole idea that we've been seeing at the DNC and the RNC. RNC from, of course, a few weeks ago of positive versus negative messaging, where Democrats seem to be very prideful about their country and where they're from, where Republicans are very much talking about how things are in decline. So I think we also have been seeing this kind of play out at the national level of both the DNC and then the RNC.
Yeah, and I think it's a great strategy on the part of the Democrats to reclaim patriotism and not allow Republicans to take the title of patriots. Which, as far as I'm concerned, they relinquished as soon as they allowed Donald Trump to be their nominee after he had attempted to overturn the results of the 2020 election and prevent the peaceful transfer of power in the American tradition.
You can read more about Patrick's column about this over at MinnesotaReformer.com, again titled, "The GOP's Losing Message, America and Minnesota Are Terrible, No Good Places," as he challenges that perception that Republicans often paint of Minnesota and even America as large. Again, find that column over at MinnesotaReformer.com. I want to move on now and talk about this electric fire truck that is being purchased in the city of St. Paul, because St. Paul is potentially on the hook for $1.8 million for this electric fire truck after federal funding fell through. This is an article by Max Nesteract. So St. Paul is making history with Minnesota's first ever electric fire truck, which, again, as I mentioned, comes with a $1.8 million price tag that promises to enhance public safety and reduce environmental impact. But it's also a move that has sparked both excitement and some questions about its cost, funding, and long-term impact. So can you start off by giving us a little bit of an overview on how St. Paul became home to Minnesota's first electric fire truck?
Well, that's a decision that the fire chief and I guess with the assent of city government made. They were going to be kind of trailblazers on this. It is the same company that makes our diesel fire rigs, but it costs quite a bit more. The advantage, obviously, is you have far less emissions and less air pollution, and of course, being electric, you don't have quite the same number of carbon emissions. What raises eyebrows here is that they said they were going to try to get federal funding, and really there's no potential federal funding here really to speak of. So I don't know what they were thinking there. And also the city of St. Paul, certainly one of the highest tax cities in the state, and their property taxpayers are in for another significant tax increase, almost surely, in the coming year. And you just have to wonder why St. Paul felt the need to be out in front on this, given its fiscal challenges. But the advantages, I guess they thought, outweighed the significant costs.
What I've also found interesting about this is that the city of St. Paul has a close relationship with Rosenbauer, who is the manufacturer of this truck. So can you tell us a little bit more about how this relationship may have influenced the fire department's purchasing decisions? Because there is some controversy between this relationship that employees have had with the city as well as Rosenbauer.
Yeah, the reporter Max Nestorak picked up some chatter amongst rank and file that there's some kind of whining and dining going on between Rosenbauer and the fire chief. The salesman did indicate that he's taken the fire chief to some wild games as a friend, he says. So read that how you will. But we have to, at this point, only assume that that did not influence the fire department's decision to buy this extremely expensive truck, which, by the way, the company Rosenbauer has a factory in Minnesota, but this truck is made in Austria. So they had to send 6 firefighters St. Paul firefighters over to Austria as it was being built to inspect it. We were curious about this because it certainly sounded like a junket, but apparently this is standard operating procedure that firefighters, folks involved in maintaining the truck, and firefighters would inspect the truck as it's being built, and that this kind of a trip, Rosenbauer paid for it, which also raised some questions for us. But apparently, this is also standard operating procedure, and it's built into the contract. So we don't exactly know how much it costs, but this is how Rosenbauer builds their contracts. They also pay for this pretty extraordinary travel.
Yeah, certainly would be good to be one of those fire people that got a chance to go over to Austria. Certainly be a good trip to test that out. But you can read more about what Max reported on that fire truck in St. Paul, including how that federal funding that was supposed to pay for the truck largely fell through over at MinnesotaReformer.com, titled "St. Paul on the Hook for $1.8 million Electric Fire Truck After Federal Funding Fell Through," again over at MinnesotaReformer.com. And finally, one more article to talk about today, and this one is from Dina, as it's titled, "After George Floyd's Killing, Policing Defined Governor Tim Walz's Tenure." So let's talk about this, because policing has had a major impact on Walz's tenure, because originally when he was elected back in 2018, I would say criminal justice reform wasn't exactly on the top of the docket in terms of priorities from at least the Walz administration back then. In fact, I think you could even argue that Walz was initially seen as being pro-police, but of course the murder of George Floyd back in 2020 has led to a shift in his stance on policing reform. Let's talk about his evolution on policing and criminal justice reform over the years, because that definitely has changed, especially since that murder of George Floyd back in 2020.
Yeah, Governor Walz was in this extraordinary situation where, on the one hand, we have a murder of an unarmed black man and by police, and on the other hand, you have, thanks to the pandemic and perhaps some other causes, a significant rise in crime, including violent crime. And carjackings and that sort of thing. And so he's had to balance these priorities. And I think it's definitely been his most difficult governing and political challenge. And every time he was seemed to have any kind of handle on it, events would make it even more difficult. So you had, while the trial of Derek Tobin, the officer accused of killing Floyd, the trial there is winding down, and it's thus far it has been kind of mostly peaceful. But then you get the killing of Dante Wright, another unarmed young black man, this time in Brooklyn Center, and so Walz has to pivot again, and this time it's pretty clear he is not going to allow the police station up there to be attacked and burned as happened with the precinct in Minneapolis after Floyd's killing. And so he gets all kinds of opposition and animosity from his left flank. And this is in 2021. Crime is still rising. The Minneapolis Police Department loses would turn out to be hundreds of officers, and just worsening the situation there. So he's constantly had to do this a very difficult balancing act between, on the one hand, trying to promote constitutional policing, but on the other hand, trying to keep people safe.
Well, you can read more about what Dina wrote on this because it's an extensive overview on how policing and criminal justice reform has affected the Walz administration over the years, including talking about somewhat contentious relationship that Walz has had with Mayor Jacob Fry in the aftermath of the George Floyd murder, including pushback on criminal justice reforms from both the left and right flanks on Governor Tim Walz. It's a good overview that you can find over at MinnesotaReformer.com, especially in light of, obviously, Walz being the VP selection for Kamala Harris, and Walz also giving a speech tomorrow at the DNC. You can find that article over at MinnesotaReformer.com. We have been speaking with Patrick Coolican, who is the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer. Again, make sure you go to MinnesotaReformer.com for the best in Minnesota news and politics. Patrick, as always, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks. Always a pleasure.
All right, let's take a break and send things back over to Matt McNeil on AM 950.
AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show. And a reminder, when September 10th, the first debate, we are going to be having a debate party over at Crooner's Lounge and Supper Club with a live broadcast starting at 7. The debate starts at 8, so we want you to join us over at Crooner's on Central Avenue, just north of 694 up in the north side. Good fun, fantastic food out there. And like I said, a live broadcast. Why not? Now, if you want to get tickets for that, go to am950radio.com. Go to am950radio.com and join us. We'll look forward to seeing you out there as things looking good. And once again, I've already covered the DNC a lot today. We got the coverage starting again tonight at 7 o'clock right here on AM 950. I want to get into this. This is off of Bring Me the News. A Minneapolis shooting that injured 4 children inside a stolen vehicle early Sunday has amplified disagreements between Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty and Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara. Now, we've all saw the story. I mean, you hate to think that this is where it's gone, but apparently the gangs are now recruiting, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, and they're opening fire on each other. That's what it sounds like, at least. And, 11 through 14, according to Minneapolis police, the children between the ages of 11 and 14 were shot near West Broadway and Girard Avenue. O'Hara on Wednesday confirmed all 4 children, including one girl who was shot in the head, are expected to survive, though. Authorities have not revealed details regarding potential suspects, but O'Hara confirmed there was a barrage of automatic gunfire during the drive-by attack, which spanned approximately 2 blocks. A 5th child inside the stolen Kia. So these 11 to 14-year-olds were in a stolen car. That one was injured. Police say, according to the investigators, the Kia was followed by a sedan before one or more suspects inside the sedan opened fire. The clash between Moriarty and by the way, yeah, someone in this city saw 11 to 14-year-old kids and opened fire on them. Yeah, kind of scary stuff. The clash between Moriarty and O'Hara came to light Monday afternoon when Hennepin County Attorney's Office released the statement regarding the children. The shooting of 4 children in a car over the weekend is tragic and unacceptable. The statement reads, "We must act with urgency to implement effective solutions to gun violence to ensure no one in our community is victimized in this way." The statement continues, yesterday, Chief O'Hara inaccurately stated that children under 14 cannot be referred for prosecution. Law enforcement has a variety of pathways to refer youth ages 10 and older to our office, including submitted cases for charging and referring to our Youth Auto Theft Early Intervention Initiative. Well, I mean, just if there's driving around in a stolen car, I don't know if the early intervention is. I think you're a little late for early intervention. They've already stolen a car. Moriarty says that 81% of youths referred to its Youth Auto or Theft Early Intervention Initiative have not had any new charges a year later. Has praised the program for helping to reduce carjacking and auto theft, which has declined in the Twin Cities over the past 2 years. So the program has having some success, but if stealing a car is not like stealing a pack of Tic Tacs, okay? And I don't get me wrong, theft is bad. I'll be the first to say it. But whereas you get a kid who tries to dine and dash at a McDonald's or something like that, and you refer them to a counseling program, that's one thing. If they're already stealing a Kia, I believe. I talked about this after I came back from Alcatraz because that the rehabilitation was not ever something that was accomplished during the days of Alcatraz. That was just you just locked people up. You just locked them up, and that was it. They were removed from society until their term was up, and then put back out there after they served their time. Rehabilitation was not something, but I think that we're not dealing with a minor crime here. I will say 81% of youths, that seems to be, so 4/5 of the kids that are going in there are having some success. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office claims that none of the children who were shot Sunday had been referred for the program and claims the Minnesota Police Department did not refer any youth to this initiative in the second quarter of 2024 and has only made 4 referrals in the third quarter to date. So basically what the Hennepin County Attorney's Office is saying, we've got a program here that's not jail time, and it's not going to be charging them with a crime, and the police is not sending us the charging. That's what the Hennepin County Attorneys, that's at least from the statements, is what I'm hearing. The statement concludes, our office has not yet received any case submissions for the person or persons responsible for the shooting. Okay. O'Hara did respond. O'Hara held a press conference Monday afternoon to respond to the Hennepin County statement. According to O'Hara, investigators sent 2 cases to the Hennepin County Attorney's Office on August 9th seeking felony-level auto theft charges against 2 of the youths later shot inside the vehicle. The kids weren't charged. They weren't diverted, and despite pleas from their parents begging for help, begging them to get detained, they were let back onto the street into the same environment to commit more crimes, which they did over the weekend, O'Hara said. So what he is saying is this, that the only option the Hennepin County Attorney is giving them is into the slap on the wrist program. Here you had kids who were referred to just a week or so ago to get charges against them for car theft. And the Hennepin County attorney, for whatever reason, ignored those, but then it doesn't sound like said, hey, here's the deal. We're not going to charge them with car theft, but we'll put them into our auto program here, and that's the case. And here's the part which I have a hard time with. The parents are actually asking for the county to intervene here. And, you want the argument is made that sometimes, the parents are not involved, henceforth the problems are happening. Here it sounds like it's the opposite. The parents are involved, and they're just watching their kids spiral out of control, and they need some harsher punishments here as opposed to slap on the wrist programs, and nothing happened. So going back to O'Hara's statement. By the way, and it should be mentioned, the Hennepin County Attorney's Office statement does not address O'Hara's claims that he did refer two of these kids for criminal charges, but rather only said police have not referred any cases involving the person or persons responsible for the shooting. Okay. You have, once again, obviously, catch the people that open fire on them, but there is a second crime here of car theft that needs to be addressed. According to O'Hara, the Hennepin County Attorney's Office has not yet responded to the two cases submitted on August 9th. Additionally, O'Hara said the two of the youths involved in Sunday's shooting are on the Hennepin County Attorney's Office's Youth Group Violence Intervention Program, which guides young people away from group-involved violence, which would seem to mean that that program has some faults too. Now, I like a good diamond in the rough story. Sure, who doesn't? Once again, I'm going to repeat what I've said before. And maybe this is because of what happened to me with the broken back by a drunken driver and basically, the mentality of, well, like, your pinky swear you're not going to kill anyone else? That sort of mentality. This, you've got to have some bit of harsher punishment here. Because the diamond in the rough story is only an appealing story because there's a lot of rough out there. And to act as if, well, that's not rough, those are all diamonds. No, they're not. That's not the whole concept. The diamond in the rough story isn't an impressive story because there are so many people that were diamonds in the rough. No, the diamond in the rough story is a story because it's the exception, not the rule. I believe that we should have rehabilitation. But once again, the same Hennepin County Attorney's Office that wanted to deal with shooters in a murder with, Netflix and DoorDash at home because that they thought was a good enough punishment for the gunman in a murder. They don't seem to be, it seems to be that unless the police department is sending them cases into the programs they want, then they're not paying attention. Which, by the way, I'm backing up O'Hara here again, because O'Hara is the seasoned police officer. If he is seeing a kid, and I don't care if the kid is 14 years old, if the kid is a repeated offender and they're having a problem, they need to do something more than just, well, do you swear you're not going to do it again? Because that doesn't seem to be working with some of these kids. One of the things which has been a consistent problem when you've put in extremely progressive, attorneys into the county attorney's offices, when you put in extremely progressive ones, is that they try to do a lot of these things, but what ends up getting them every time is the guy that they let go who then commits another crime. And here it seems as if what is happening is you've got two of these kids, and tragically they got shot, but it doesn't escape the fact that they stole this car and apparently had stolen other cars. And apparently their own parents were like, you need to put some crime, something down here. And the Hennepin County attorney goes, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a drum circle and some pancakes, and we're going to solve all these problems. That doesn't solve car theft. And granted, I have zero doubt there are some of these kids where the parents aren't involved and this is there, and you want to try to give a kid a better chance. But you can't just ignore the crimes. And that is a consistent problem with the Hennepin County Attorney right now. This is not the Mary Moriarty that campaigned for that office. I am for the judicial system needs reforms. But reforms aren't letting people who are repeat offenders, who clearly are not getting the pancake breakfast drum circle lesson of life and diverting from their crimes, but instead, as soon as they are done with their appointment and the pat on the back from the Hennepin County Attorney, are back out stealing a car, there's a problem there. And yes, we can definitely talk about the fact that we need to have some community intervention when you have 11, 12, 13-year-old kids consistently showing up in crime blotters. But if O'Hara is saying, no, this has, I feel sorry for these kids, but this has elevated 2 charges. Charges need to be filed, and you're just basically ignoring that, saying, you're not doing it the way we want to. Well, his job to a point, as he's trying to fix this system, is not to necessarily do it the way that other people want, is to do it the way he thinks is right. And if O'Hara, and once again, I think O'Hara's doing an okay job. I think he's redeeming this police department slowly after decades, well, in eternity, as a bad police department. I think O'Hara's doing a pretty good job of trying to bring this department back. What I have a problem with is the Hennepin County Attorney, who will not win re-election. I virtually guarantee you. I'm a mainstream Democrat. I know a lot of progressives. I know most of the people that I hang out with who are on the left. They're not happy with Mary Moriarty. And it's stuff like this. I understand no one likes to charge a 14-year-old with car theft, but after the 3rd or 4th time, what do you think? Are you going to just give him more pancakes? Are you going to play the drum a little louder in the drum circle? Because it's whatever you're doing is not working. Now, once again, obviously the shooters, find them, charge them. But right now, if we find out the shooters were, say, a 13 and a 14-year-old, does anyone think that Mary Moriarty is going to actually throw charges at them? Or is that going to be the super-duper pancake breakfast and drum circle? Because, once again, she had people who committed murder, were the gunmen in a murder, and her solution was Netflix and DoorDash. That is not a solution. So, once again, I just, and if this ruins my leftist cred, fine. I'm on O'Hara's side here. It sounds like he's trying to get the city under control, and he's getting a stiff arm from the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. And like I said, I understand first-time offender, fine. But when you get guys who are 4, 5, 6 cars down the road, at what point do you realize, well, maybe we need to do something a little more stringent? I'm with O'Hara, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Take a break, come on back, wrap up the show. When we return, it's the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show. Oh, nothing I like more than when we have polluters. Remember when the spill happens, it was 1,000 gallons, and it was 100,000 gallons. It was 500,000 gallons. It was 1 million gallons. Oh, it's 5.5 million gallons. That is just oopsies. I can't stand that. The other thing I can't stand is hearing the inevitable, hey, we should have probably done something before that, which, let me present the case. State pollution regulators told Minnesota Power it should take action to prevent wastewater spills from its massive coal plant in Cohasset, Minnesota, roughly 3 months before 5.5 million gallons of coal ash wastewater poured out from a cracked pipe. Oh, you mean that? Oh, yeah. Oh, oopsie. We didn't get to that, even though you warned us 3 months ahead of time. Duluth-based Minnesota Power reported 11 total spills, but all of them much smaller. Oh, I guess that makes it better. Between October 2021 and August 2023, including 3 of ash wastewater. Those incidents were from other functions at the plant and unrelated to the July discharge, said Kurt Anderson, the director of environmental and land management for the Minnesota Power. Until the larger leak, the utility had not had issue with that system, Anderson said. When asked if the spills were connected, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency said it was still investigating to learn more about the cause of the July spill. Hey, we've done this dance before, people. And an April 2nd letter from the MPCA also said the utility failed to immediately notify the state after 6 of the releases. One reason the agency issued a warning letter for alleged violations for the key water permit. Speaking of going light on criminals, you had 6 releases that you did not tell us about. Well, now we're putting you on double secret probation. All right. The MPCA said Minnesota Power should submit and execute a plan to prevent future unauthorized discharges of water. You'll think? And asked the company to provide evidence, including pictures, that it had done so. The smaller spills range from 50 gallons of wash water from a truck bay to 1,000 gallons of ash silo wastewater, the byproduct of spreading coal to prevent dust. The causes were mostly attributed to equipment failures. Well, it sounds like equipment is failing all over your power plant. This is not good. There was one spill caused by a power outage and another by a worker's error. Oh, Phil. The MPCA found that overall the coal plant appeared to be well maintained in good working order. Well, outside of all the spills, sure. Outside of Homer taking that chunk of nuclear material home with him in the back of his suit. Yeah, outside of all that, it's going great. Anderson said the warning letter is the lowest level of enforcement actions. Of course it is. Because it's, we get our stern wagon fingers out, but heaven forbid we actually protect the water, which is, by the way, becoming a scarcer resource every day. Native Roots Radio is up next. Have a good one. We're back tomorrow. Till then, see ya.